Hey, Ghosty fam. Welcome to the Activity Continues podcast. I'm AP, the other Amy, and we're just so excited to be back recording with you. It's been so long, like
I know.
5 minutes
It
since we
feels
recorded
like
the
that.
last one.
Yeah, I know. Time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Always. If you're new here, we are friends and soul sisters who recap episodes of the TV show The Dead Files and talk about other creepy shit or animals or shows or movies or all sorts of different things. You never know what you're going to get. It's
Or
kind of a
creepy
mixed
animals.
bag. Creepy animals. Yeah, we got a few of those too.
Well, last episode.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. We are recording a few episodes to help us give you great content while our mastermind Amy can take a much deserving break on vacation soon.
Jealous.
I know.
This week we are once again going back to our old format like we did the last time, in that we are talking about episodes of the Dead Files, but we're talking about older ones. So this episode is called Hell's Kitchen, not the fun Gordon Ramsay one. And it's from season 14 and it is episode 7. Originally it aired on March 5th of 2022. And now over to Amy L for some housekeeping stuff.
So even though this is an older episode, if you have not watched it and you don't like spoilers, please be advised we will be talking about any and all aspects of the show. Content warning, there is some slavery conversation and blatant racism in 1913.
Mhm.
But, you know, we all know it's happening still today. And some health issues. And I always advise people to check the content warning in the show notes before going too far, because sometimes we miss stuff right now when I'm doing it, and then we don't, because we don't know where the conversation is going to lead.
Right.
So
Perfect.
let's jump right in. We're talking about season 14, episode 7, Hell's Kitchen. This was AP's choice. So
Yes.
AP, if you want to take it away.
Yeah. Well, I chose this episode after we did one with a family. So I know there's ones with restaurants and hotels and things that are not house properties. And those ones always interest me just to see like the dynamic and who's going to be interviewed and what's going on. So I did a Google machine search, and it popped up an article about 5 you should watch about season 14. And this was like the first one on the docket. So I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And I'm glad we did this one. There's a lot of stuff. Again, my logic brain has to explain things, and whether it needs explaining or not, I make a lot of connections in this one that
Yeah, we all have some thoughts about this.
Yeah,
one.
we sure do.
I have more thoughts about this one than I did the one that we just did.
Yep.
Because
Yeah. And then I apologize if you guys start hearing some squeaky toys, because somebody
I can't
just
hear
heard
anything.
pick one
I
up.
just heard
So
one. It sounds
yeah.
like a parrot. I was like,
Oh no, they're a little ways away from me. But this episode focuses in on a restaurant. And so a little background on this restaurant that I found is Nona Lucia restaurant that's in Bluffton, South Carolina. And I did some looking up about the restaurant because I'm like, well, hey, that's something I can look up. So the restaurant is permanently closed. So just to give some heads up on that, it was impacted by Hurricane Danny in June of 2021. That caused a lot of flooding in the area. The restaurant owners did not.
Now I heard.
Yeah, that's Wesley. The restaurant owners did not own the building that they had their restaurant in. And so with all the insurance claims and everything going on, the owners of the building decided to sell the building.
yeah.
And Nona Lucia did not reopen afterwards. I looked on Facebook, found some information, and you can just kind of flip through there. I did find an interesting one, and I sent this to Amy. Prior to them having the Dead Files come in, they did do a medium and psychics night like 6 months prior. So I sent a picture that I took a screenshot off of their Facebook page, because I had to do a little bit of the like figuring out. I'm like, okay, when did this happen and when was this going on? But just something I thought was curious just to keep in mind too as we kind of go through this episode.
I wonder, was it a site? Like, what was the concept behind it? Because that could have
it didn't
a lot of shit.
It
was like an event, though, right?
Yeah,
it wasn't like
yeah.
they just invited them over on the
Nope,
sly.
they were it was an event of some sort where they were having people sit around and having conversations. It looked
Okay.
like.
Interesting.
I will say I had some flags that went up right off the bat when we meet the restaurant owner, Michelle,
Yeah.
just because there was one thing, and I told Amy, I'm like, you'll know exactly when I was like, that's interesting. It was Steve asking her what's going on, and she says the only explanation is it has to be paranormal for both health issues and her marriage issues.
No,
Mhm.
that was my thought too. And I'm like, okay, so she's listing all of these health issues that she's having. And heart attack, yeah. But not that it's not possible,
Mhm.
but like type 1 diabetes, I'm sorry, but I don't think paranormal is going to cause your type 1 diabetes.
Right.
I'm sorry. I don't think that.
No,
And again, I'm not saying it's not possible, but
Yep.
it's not likely. In
Yeah.
all the shows we've done and that
Yeah.
they've done, they've never been like, and I developed type 1 diabetes.
So my mom's a nurse in a cardiac unit, and she has seen plenty of people who are younger than 50, because this woman said, I was 50 and I had a
Yeah.
heart attack.
Mhm.
She said she had a stroke, and there's various levels of degrees of
Yep.
stroke. So
Yep.
not discounting any of this sort of stuff, but vertigo
My dad
and
had a stroke
diabetes.
he didn't even
Mhm.
know about. Like,
Yep.
so sorry to interrupt you. I
Oh
didn't
no,
mean to.
my
That
dad.
was-
I think they thought my dad had one in his eyes that
Mhm.
caused him issues with his vision a few years ago, almost a decade ago now at this point. But
What were her
she-
thoughts on this? Did you ask
well,
her?
she didn't watch it, but I started saying something, and she's like, "Oh my God, those are all very common, no matter what the age you are, and just because you had one doesn't mean it could have
Mhm.
spurred the others. It could have just happened.
Mhm.
Diet goes into it,
Yep.
fitness levels, being
That's what I'm
how
thinking.
active,
Yes.
how active,
Like,
and all of that sort of stuff. And again, this goes back to my theory of you're not showing any. I tried doing something differently
Mhm.
before I blamed paranormal.
Right.
And so this is where I just struggled a little bit with that. Again, we do know that being drained and having some of your energy gone, which can lead to some of those other things. But what was your blood pressure and
Right.
what's your,
Right.
scenarios
what's your
going on
diet?
around?
What's
And
your activity? And I mean, I'm
And you
not any
just
better than.
started a business with your husband.
Oh God, I've
Yeah,
never in
stress.
a million years would I go into business with my husband. Fuck, I don't even want to work with him. Like we've talked about it. I'm like, I need a fucking break from you. Like I need a break.
Yeah.
I can't imagine getting up, working, and it's a restaurant. They're not working 5, 6, 7 hour days. Like those
No.
are
Oh.
18, 19-hour
Yeah.
days
Well,
that
and
they're putting in.
my mom made a great point. She goes, well, and then what's the boss situation? Who's in
Who's the
charge
boss?
of things? Because you can't say both. I'm guessing she was front of house and he was back of house.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But still, typically you have a general manager then, and you have the front and back, and
Yeah.
then you have a general manager that takes care of all.
And something that he said towards the end really made me think, like, this is not paranormal. Like, this is your marriage issue.
And again,
which,
there's definitely things that can go in there, or how
Yes.
you believe something and what's going on. But the fact that her statement was the only
only,
explanation
right.
is paranormal.
is it? No, not the only one.
And I went back and I watched it once or twice, and I was like, okay, so she did say only explanation. So that's where I was like, okay, this is going to be an interesting episode.
And
just
like,
to
when
base
she
off.
said type 1 diabetes, girl, like, I'm not skinny. I know this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not, but like, neither is she.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, now, if you were, a skinny mini and look like you worked out, I would be surprised that you have heart issues and diabetes.
stroke.
But she looked like me.
To be
Yeah.
fair, one of the guys that I worked with when I worked at a school in Western Minnesota, he and I stayed friends afterwards, and he was early 50s. He might have been just about 50, dropped dead of a heart attack. He was out on a run. So he was
Okay.
out on a run, and
Never exercise, I
So-
swear.
Yep.
And the horrible part was, it was shortly after my birthday, and we had just missed connecting with each other, and we said, "Oh, it was over the weekend," and he's like, he went out for a run. He was on the main like highway going out of town with his dog, and his wife could see when his heart stopped. Because she had his heart monitor, the Apple Watch or whatever it was at the time, and Fitbit, whatever. His dog Max sat by his side until somebody found him, because it was Sunday morning or something like that, and it wasn't like it was early in the morning. It was 8, 9 o'clock in the morning. It was late October, so it wasn't like it was a storm out.
Super hot. Yeah.
Yep. And he was, all in all, a relatively healthy guy.
That's true. That's a good point. We were kind of victim blaming, and
so he ended up shaming. So he ended up, they got a line back on him, but they had to make the decision to take him off life support and donate his organs.
That's really awful.
Mm-hmm. But
again, thanks for keeping us logical, Amy.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say we're victim blaming. I'm just saying I think that
questioning,
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, that's more, because I don't know.
Well, and I'll mention, I just found out yesterday I had lunch with Flip Phone Jody.
Yep.
And
Flip Phone Jody, how's she doing?
She's great.
Does she still have a flip phone?
Yes.
Of course.
That will never change. She told me that her brother, who is 43, had a heart attack last 2 weeks ago.
Is he okay?
He's okay now.
What?
But his
so young.
half of his heart was 100% occluded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means.
Closed up. Clogged.
Yeah.
So he had...
It would have been it
was the left. I want to say the left side, I want to say.
Yep.
Anyway.
My favorite thing, too.
It's the best. It's the important one. That much we know.
Is it? I didn't know that.
Well, I didn't either until Jody told me. Jody's a nurse.
Jody.
So Jody's like, his albumin was blah, blah, blah. I'm like, we don't know what any of that means, Jody. Just tell us.
To us like we're 5?
Right.
I don't know.
But maybe Jody and she and I can talk.
Yeah. Yeah. She and your mom would know exactly what they're talking about. But no, she said that, he's 43. He's married, has a couple little kids, and he's not like a big guy or anything, and he's not been diagnosed with anything, but he eats like shit. He eats fried food, fast food, lots of meat.
Caffeine intake too, because my mom has noted that they've seen people in the late 20s and 30s having to get heart procedures. She's in an inpatient or an outpatient facility. So
but I drink coffee.
It's not that. It's drinking like 4 Monsters in a day. Or you get these people who drink they drink a 6-pack of Coke or Diet Coke or Mountain Dew or whatever. And that's pretty consistent.
No.
So they are seeing that connection with...
You can have coffee.
I have like 2 to 3 a day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Like big ones?
No. Like a cup. Like a cup.
Okay.
Like a
cup. When she pulls up a cup, that's like a gallon.
Yeah.
Just a cup.
Perspective. Here it is. Okay. That's a big...
Can I see it with the banana, please?
Banana for... I don't have a banana for scale. I'm sorry. Here's my glasses. Do glasses for scale.
Okay. Oh, it looks cute on your glasses. Or your cup looks cute with glasses.
I know. Okay.
Did anybody else just hear music going off?
I did.
Yeah, that was Greg just sent me a picture of Vivian laying in a sunbeam.
Okay.
And that was my text thing. It's on my phone. I didn't realize I didn't turn my phone off. I will post I'll post the picture to our group
Amy,
chat.
That was a really good time for you to be like, no, I didn't hear anything.
No, it wasn't my fault.
What are you guys?
It's totally my fault.
I didn't hear a thing. See, that's where you could have made us totally feel nutso.
All right.
So we have Michelle and Julio, who are the married couple.
Yes.
I will say I love when Amy starts her walk, and again, having watched an early season and then a later season,
and then
just
immediately a late,
comparing the two, and just
she swears more as she gets.
Like, there's a lot of fucking people around here, man.
Yeah.
And she's
it's like there's
like
some shit happening.
You can see her characters have.
She's much more comfortable.
Character of herself has really developed.
Yeah,
I think she just blossomed into maybe more of who she is, and she doesn't give a rip about the way that it's going to come across because this is how it needs to come across.
Yeah,
Plus,
and she's I'm an executive producer now. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah,
And like the show is already successful. I mean, early on they weren't sure it was going to be picked up, but probably again. So,
Yep.
but we're in season 14, and like AP said, like she doesn't give a fuck what anyone's saying.
And
But
good for her.
Good for
does.
you, Amy Helen. We love
Yes.
you. Come be on our show.
I know. I just adore her. Also, I love how her hair is just really stayed in the pinks and purples, which then makes me wonder, is that a color for her that maybe adds towards her protection of herself when she goes through these?
Because, she only really does pinks and purples, I think.
Even when her hair was dark.
Yeah.
Pinks, purples, blues.
Yep.
A little bit blue when it was.
I think I saw her in a green once, but that was just once and it was a long time ago.
Oh, see, maybe. Yeah. I just remember she really is the pinks and the purples.
Yep.
Even when they do like if you want to reach out to the Dead Files later on, there's purple in her hair.
With her kind of pin-up-y style, like
I love that.
Yes.
So cute.
She can pull it off so well.
I know.
I know she does.
So
I
cute.
look ridiculous, but she looks glamorous. There's a difference.
But Amy does talk about feeling anxious, shaking, upset. She eventually does mention people being angry or paranoid, which is how Michelle describes Julio.
Yep.
I do have the quote that she said, "My marriage is in trouble. The only exclamation it could be is the paranormal." That was what she said.
I wrote that down too.
Yep. And then Amy going back to Amy with all the dead here. She says, I don't know why there are so many dead here. They want to leave. They want help they're trying to get people's attention. And she talks about one in a rocking chair specifically where his face is like half decomposed and half burned, but she doesn't really know what's going on with him. She talks about seeing shadow people, and Julio mentioned seeing shadow people, like a whole family of them. Like there's a whole family of shadow people that he sees. And I remember, Amy talks about, or Julio mentions like, oh yeah, there's definitely something in the kitchen. It rattles the plates. And I thought Steve had a great point on it. And he said, well, could it be the trucks going by? You're not that far from the road. Yeah. And Julio's face was kind of like, no, it's like this. And I'm like, okay. Again, one of those.
Then he rattled plates like, oh, what a truck going by could do.
Right, exactly. And it almost had that look like he hadn't thought that maybe that could be one of the exclamations or explanations. Thank you. Words are tough.
Yeah, hard some days. They're really hard. Yeah, I was like, okay, really? Like, you're going to rattle plates like we've never fucking heard what plates rattling sounds like?
Well, that and Amy, I know you called this out too, but okay, you have 2 spots in your restaurant where people keep falling.
Yeah.
Maybe
put some damn mats down.
Well, it's on the coast. It's because when they pulled away and did some of the shots, I'm like, okay, is it settling? Has it been moving? If it's always in the same spot, to me, it's like, what have you done to try to explain why people are like, did the floor warp? Because you can have that little bit of, what do they say? Even like with stairs, if the stair is just slightly too tall or slightly too short compared to what everybody is used to doing, you will trip. Yep. So even if the floor has been worn out and it's just a little bit of warp in that one spot, and she said only 2 people have said they felt like they were pushed.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was out for like weeks, and it's like, that's a worker's
because she really hurt herself.
Yeah. So that would be a worker's comp thing. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's it. It was just one of those. I think I was just like, okay, if there's 2 spots where people are always falling, why aren't you doing something about it?
Yeah, and they show the spots, and they're like slick tile, and like put some fucking mats down. I mean, bars have those rubber mats with the holes in them all over the place.
Yep. Yes. It's almost like they don't want to take any accountability for anything that's going wrong. Their marriage, the bar.
Yes. I wrote that down too. But then going back, knowing that, so when they filmed was in August of 2021, the restaurant was already closed. So then it's like, did they take the mats out of there? Did they stage all the glassware and the plates and stuff? At the point, I don't think they were permanently closed yet, but they were closed due to damages from Hurricane Danny.
Okay.
And they just never reopened.
Yep, because
that's too bad.
Yep, I think they didn't have a location to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Probably for the best, honestly, for their marriage. But I have thoughts towards the end that we can go over.
Oh yeah.
I'm putting the cart before the horse. Which is rare for us. I know we're usually so linear.
What?
We're
in our
usually so
discussion.
on point constantly through the
We
entire
stay on
episode.
topic. We
Yep.
never veer.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's us.
Right.
I met Amy L for happy hour this weekend, and oh my God, it took us 25 minutes to tell one story because it was
Should
like,
be recording this. This would be funny.
yeah, we started talking, and then Amy would be like, oh my God, wait, I have to tell you this story. And then she'd say something, and I'd be like, wait, that reminds me of this story. And then Greg, her husband, is like, the fuck are these two doing?
He's like, another margarita, please.
yeah, he's
We're
like,
gonna be here for a while.
I need to be able to cope with this.
Did you have your margarita to celebrate Jimmy Buffett with his passing?
Oh, I
hadn't
just
died
found
yet, I
out
don't
about
think.
that today.
Yeah, he died yesterday.
No, he
Was
died
it-
Friday
is-
evening.
Did he?
Oh, see,
I didn't hear about it until
I didn't
this
hear
morning.
about it till yesterday.
Yeah, I heard about it yesterday morning.
Mm.
But yeah, Friday evening, 76.
That's
77.
young.
That's young. It's so
Yeah.
young.
I thought he was a
They-
lot older than that.
So did I, but they did not provide a cause, but it's
They just
I
said
saw
he died
something-
in his sleep.
I saw something that said
Mm.
from sources close to him had been potentially battling cancer,
Oh,
which I mean, cancer takes
Bless him.
everything. So
Yeah. Oh,
right.
We're all going to get it, I believe. A
Probably.
form of it. Anyways.
Anyway, on that happy topic,
yeah. So cheers.
What were we talking about?
Yeah.
the
Wasted
Dead
away
Files.
again
Megan,
in
pay attention.
Margaritaville.
I'm sorry. Oh, no. Where am I? What's happening?
Over here,
So
over
what-
here.
Yeah,
Focus.
I think
focus.
I wrote down a quote from Steve because he and Michelle were sitting at the bar
Mhm.
and she talked about always feeling like she was being watched. And he said, well, do you feel like you're being watched now? She goes, well, it's not as bad when there's other people here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed, and then
that
he was
too.
going like this. He's rubbing his forehead like this, and
Yeah,
I wrote, "He is not buying her BS."
Steve was having a hard time. I kind of feel like Amy had a hard time later
Yeah.
on. Steve sounds exasperated.
Mhm.
Do you think you're going a little nutty here? That's what he said.
Yeah. I had issues with her. The both of them. Well, mostly her.
Mostly her.
She's- I feel like she's clinging on to what's already gone.
Yep.
In my
Yeah,
opinion.
that could very well could be, especially if the place was already closed by then, and they didn't have that keeping them together. That could be.
Yeah.
She's going through some grief.
Yeah, it was, and it's really interesting then when you know that it doesn't reopen and you see the end credits happen, you're like, okay.
This one was this was one of the harder ones for me to believe.
Mhm.
Most of them, I'm very much 100% behind
Yeah.
them.
I was
And I
pretty
was-
cynical
I
on
was
this one.
here
This one
for
was tough.
the history on it.
Yeah.
They did bring in an employee, Alexandra.
Yeah.
Alexandra is the one I believe the most.
Yeah.
You know, she talks about being poked in the back, and Steve's like, well, it's the South. Could it be a bug?
I know. I'm like, Steven, you know the difference between
What
a
kind
bug
of
and
bug
cold.
are
I
we
can't
talking
remember-
about?
I can't remember what bug he said,
it
but
started
he,
with a P because for
Yeah.
a second I thought he said pimento. And I'm like,
that.
Oh,
He said
palmetto?
Yes.
Did he say palmetto?
oh, yes.
Those
Yeah.
fuckers are big. Those are
Okay.
big fucking bugs,
Yeah.
but
But you
still.
know the difference
But-
between
and she's
getting
like,
hit
no,
by
no,
a
it's
bug
like-
and being
It's like getting
poked.
actually poked in the back.
Steven, that's
uh,
as bad as is it the dogs?
Yeah. We're going to have to change
you
it to,
drunk?
is it the palmettos?
Is
Were-
it the
were you drinking?
bugs? Is it a bug?
Are you boozing?
You boozing? No, Steven.
But I thought this one was interesting with Alexandra because she talks about two women apparitions that she sees.
Mhm.
Yes.
Amy also talks about two women apparitions that she sees.
Mhm.
They are different in their explanations, and Steve just tries to shove them together as those are
Yeah.
the same things.
hmm
But they're not really talked about at all. So, but you mean
They're not connected to history, you mean?
they're not connected to the
Yeah,
history.
they don't
so
know
they're
who
not
they
really
are.
Connected at the reveal, but Alexandra says she sees a showgirl and she does
Yeah.
hands like this, and Steve goes, "You mean like a Vegas showgirl?" And she's like, "Yeah, like somebody in the Old West
With the headdress.
Yeah.
with the or no, she doesn't say Old West at that point, and then she says, then she sees an older woman with a little girl in 1800 style clothing."
Okay.
So then Amy talks about later on, she sees a pageant girl, like from the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Which
And
we
she's
assume to
got-
be 1980s.
Yep. So, because she's talking about like a big, a pageant dress. And then she sees, because then she makes a differentiation so the pageant woman taps on the bar to get people's attention. She wants to be seen. She wants to be heard. And then the other one.
Well, yeah, she's in a pageant.
I was going to say that tracks.
She works hard.
The other woman that Amy sees or describes is a bar girl from the from the Old West. She calls her a prostitute, so a sex worker.
Yeah.
And so putting her in the Old West in the 1800s, but she said she likes to hang out in the bathroom, which they don't talk about anything with the bathroom until the reveal when she's like, oh, yeah, there's stuff that happens in the bathroom.
Yeah, and she only said that after Amy brought it up.
Yeah, and Steve goes, we didn't talk about this, but have you seen that? And she's like, oh, yeah.
Well, and Amy said it's specific to the men's bathroom. She likes to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah. She's a creeper.
Good for her.
How's it feel, man?
Yeah. How the tables have turned.
How the turntables have turned.
But it was just kind of funny because when Amy talks about the two women, and Steve's like, oh, yeah, Alexandra saw those. And I'm like,
no.
They're not
probably not.
Maybe they're talking around the same, but it doesn't sound like the descriptions are the same women that they saw. I think one of them was the same, but I don't think the other end was the same.
Yeah.
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 I
have so many notes, guys.
And I have nothing now after that. No. I have just a reveal. I skipped all the way to the reveal from there.
Well, I did take notes on the two cases that we talk about in history.
Yeah.
Spelling, my God, I have no idea. But the first one Steve talks to is Dr. Larry Rowland, who is a local author. And Dr. Rowland talks about that the land that the restaurant sits on is part of what was formerly a plantation that had over 100 slaves.
Yep.
It was owned by the Gallatin family after the 1718 Indian War. So way back, at least for us Americans, way back.
Yeah. Europeans, that's like, oh, that was like what? 10 years ago?
Yeah, basically. So the family didn't live there, but they had overseers. So they have a house for the overseers and like a shanty town shacks for the enslaved people.
Slaves.
I think they called her like an absent master or something.
Yeah.
She was never there.
Because she didn't live there, but she had the property and everything. And Amy sees shacks that are not well built, and she sees a house, then she sees a fire. Well, we find out that in 1779, when Louisa Carolina Gallatin had the farm or had the property, the plantation, the British Army came in and burned everything, stole the crops. The enslaved people either died or went with the British forces and hopefully got up to Canada or other places to be released from being enslaved.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the big thing there. Amy sees people, I think she alluded the shadow figures to the people that died in that fire or in that time frame. Then the second person, there's three stories. The second person we talked to is Barry Pascal, who's a journalist who talks about in 1913. So this is where the blatant racism comes in. This is 50 years post-Civil War. He talks about, I am so going to get this wrong, but the Gluigeti people, they were the black people that lived there that had ties to West Africa. So they were enslaved peoples they were descendants of enslaved peoples from West Africa. And I did not look up the spelling or how to pronounce it. I watched him say it like 5 times and I'm like,
You probably are saying it right. We'll figure out how to spell it.
Yep, getting close. But they were farmers and they were prosperous. So Steve goes, I bet that pissed off the white people. Yes, Steve, it did. Because they were prosperous. They were people who were thriving.
Yep.
In June 11th.
And they were people of color.
Yep.
How dare
goodness me. Which goes into the whole thing that happened June 11th, 1913. A white woman claims that a black man who is around 30 years old, 6 feet tall, broke in and wrapped his hands around her throat.
Of course.
Which then this created a manhunt for every single black man that's in the area, including a black constable who was there to help with the investigation. Wesley's not happy about this.
I don't blame you, Wesley.
And he was arrested twice by this mob until he was like, fuck this, I'm out of here. I was just trying to help. I wasn't even here when this happened.
Right.
Eventually,
He's lucky he was able to escape, honestly.
Because he was working with the detective, and I can't remember, Detective Hammond was the man's name, who actually eventually murdered a 52-year-old black man because he tried to arrest him for the incident and
alleged incident,
which he he kind of ran away and he was shot in the back. He was not the culprit. And Steve asks, so was anybody ever caught? Nope. So do they think this is all bullshit?
She probably made it up.
That's what Steve alluded to. He goes, so do they think this is all bullshit? And he's like, yep, there is no way to know for sure, but it kind of feels that way.
It was the South in 1913.
Yep.
Let's be frank.
Yep. And then the last one that we came through, this one was really interesting. Steve had to go, dig through the archives. And
dig through the archives.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
He's a hunt and peck typer is what I noted. Kind of the sit and hover. So we end up talking with a cop who responded to the scene of a brutal murder of a local rocker that shook the community and the world. So the cop's name is Walter Criddle.
I know, I love that name.
Walter Criddle.
It sounds like a cartoon.
Yeah. This was
I'm Detective Criddle, see?
And he seemed like he was holding back tears still. Like he was.
Well, it seemed like he knew this man.
He grew up with this man.
Yeah.
So he tells us about Anthony Tony Hooks, who is a local musician, and he shows a picture to Steve, and Steve goes, "Well, that looks like Sly and the Family Stone." And he's like, "Yep, he played with Sly and the Family Stone and George Wenton and the Ohio Players." Mm-hmm. So this was somebody who was a well-known musician. Tony was a friend. He grew up with Tony, and so Walter did. Mm-hmm. January 31st of 1988, he was sitting down. He said it was a nice night, had the windows down, and I'm like, January? Oh, yeah, they're in South Carolina.
They're in the South. Yeah,
the South.
You don't
Not
sit
Minnesota.
With your windows down here, no. And so he heard the gunshot. Mm-hmm. That is what ended up killing his friend. He heard the gunshot. He saw headlights, so he gave chase because the headlights were coming from the place of the murder or gunshot, where he heard the gunshot. He had to call ahead to the Savannah PD because this guy would not pull over, and Savannah PD had to set up a traffic stop. The murder weapon was a shotgun, and they believe that, and then Amy goes into that there's a murdered man in a rocking chair. He's scared, surprised, what the hell, feels like I was punched in the stomach. This really, really hurts. Am I dying? Mm-hmm. So she catches Tony, we're alluding to, in his death state.
Yeah.
He died at the house. The murderer was Peter Hines, a musician from Hilton Head, who was never convicted for it because of reason of insanity. Mm-hmm. And
they still don't know why.
They still don't have any reason as to why, and it haunts Walter to this day. Yeah. Which you can see, like, he is visibly...
He's struggling. But they said, this Peter went to this guy's house, knocked on the door, he opened it up, and he shot him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was... And there wasn't like a fight. There wasn't an argument. There was nothing leading up to this.
Was there even anything that said like that they knew each other well? I feel like they didn't even know each other well.
No,
like
I don't think they mentioned that.
They didn't say it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It just.
And in the reveal that, he was like, he never served a day for a reason of insanity. And Amy was like, what?
Yeah. Yep. And she was never able to, like, all she could get was from Tony that he was. And he's the one who is sitting in the rocking chair, or she connects and says that it could be him with the half burned face and the half decomposed face. But again, if it was a shotgun blast and was that close, it's very likely that there was some burn marks elsewhere too.
Right.
So now we're at the reveal, so I can let anybody else talk if you want. I just, like I said, I had a lot of notes on.
Pull my notes back up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what I wrote. Amy saw a shack, a fire, and lots of people. And Steve connects that to Louisa, Carolina, who owned the plantation but didn't run it. Mm-hmm. The slaves lived in the shacks. I said the sketch looks like zombies.
Yeah.
When they showed the sketch and all these people are just like shuffling down the street.
And did you notice that there was like halfway down in the sketch, there was what appeared to me as a white woman walking with all of
Oh,
the
I
others
Oh,
in
didn't
I
it.
didn't see that. No.
Mm.
Because you had the shading of the most of the figures was darker.
Yeah.
And then there
Mhm.
was one that it seemed like it was a more of a white woman
Oh,
in
I didn't- I
attire from
missed
that
that.
time frame.
Oh, I
We'll
didn't.
have to
I
look at
missed
that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amy agrees that the dead energy could have caused stroke and heart
Mhm.
attack on the woman.
Yeah, she says it drains you, it makes you feel sick. It kind of seemed like a canned answer from Amy on
Yeah.
that one because she's
Yeah.
I mean,
she has
we're
talked
not
about it before.
saying it,
Yeah.
it's not a possibility, but it's not likely.
Yeah.
And especially the diabetes. Like,
Yeah,
Or
the
it's not
diabetes
the
doesn't
only-
fit.
Or it's not the only cause.
yes.
Yeah. I
did
did
note-
note that. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I did note that Steve said, well, here's Amy, and she's going to walk us through her walk unless she has any questions for you. Has there been many where she says, I have questions before we get started?
Before she starts? No,
No.
I don't
feel
think
like
so.
there
I
maybe
don't-
is
they
one
don't
or
air it.
two, but
I don't
Not a
remember
lot.
any.
that was just one of those things I caught on.
Yeah. I noted while they were talking about the bathroom ghost and that then, Steve said the client saw them both. And then when she says, oh yeah, she likes to go in the bathroom, especially the men's bathroom. And then Amy says, yeah, she's delightful.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's right.
One thing I noticed is when they were talking about the emotions that you can feel like depressed and angry, and Julio's like,
Mhm.
some days I just want to walk away and leave
Mhm.
this place. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep.
I don't think that's the ghosts, Julio. I
Yep.
think that's you being done with this.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that it's potential, like you potentially already have some of those too, and it just gets heightened around,
Yeah.
just like we were talked about in the last episode too. I did find it interesting. Did anybody else catch that Steve called her AIM at one point?
No, did he?
No.
That's very
Mhm.
friendly.
It was after, that's what I said, very friendly like. I said, I don't know if I've ever heard him shorthand her name before.
Oh.
Which then gives you questions to what the fuck happened with the rest of the show. But anyways,
I know.
he said, what else, AIM? This was after she talks about the two women that she
Mhm.
saw, and Steve stretches to make the connection that they're the same women that
To
Alexandra
connect
sees.
them. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And she did call out to Julio. After Megan, to what you were saying, she said, well, you might be meshing with the dead guy. And then Michelle says, makes sense. We have no reason to fight.
You're married. There's always reasons to fight when you're married. I'm sorry, but every married couple argues. If you don't, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Just like with every relationship, friends argue. We've argued before.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a natural part
Yeah.
of having any sort of relationship.
Yeah.
So
and it's
you're deluded.
Yeah.
Arguing is a natural human emotion.
Yeah. I noticed when the wife is talking, I can't remember her name. Was it Michelle?
Michelle.
Yep, Michelle.
When she's talking about Julio's anger, she's talking about it in the past tense. She says like, oh yeah, he would get really upset and he would yell at, not like he gets really upset and like it's still happening. She
And
acts like it's not still happening.
That's what I was wondering. I'm like, is it happening just at the restaurant? Like a lot of times we hear people say
Mhm.
like it, and this is where to me it makes a bigger difference is when it only happens in the house and then they leave the property and they're back to normal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We don't hear anything about when they leave, that it's following them, that it's taking them, but it all started when they started the restaurant, which has been successful,
Mhm.
is what Michelle said.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to see if there was something else in here that I had, but yeah, it was just kind of like, you've got late nights, you're probably running on caffeine, if you don't agree on what you're going to put on the menu, or I look through like the Yelp and Google reviews, she was responding. So if you are having issues where you have to respond to a negative comment,
Yeah.
and, like in one of them, somebody had a piece of parchment paper was in their food, and, you can just see her response on, it was me that talked to you. You ate all your food. That's why I gave you only a 10% discount and not
Yeah.
giving you the whole thing.
Mhm.
Plus,
You know.
restaurants are super stressful. So
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if you're successful, it's a stressful business.
I mean, did anyone watch The Bear?
I
I have.
haven't,
On
but I've
Hulu?
heard about
I've
it.
started
so
watching.
good.
I've watched 1.5 episodes.
It's so good, but
Mhm.
each season, there's 2 seasons. Each season has what I call the panic attack episode that I was watching, and I was like, I have to take a break.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was getting like all wound up. And there's no way I could ever work in a restaurant like that. No way. I love it. I love the camaraderie. I love the yes chef. I love all that shit, but I would lose my fucking mind.
Yeah, you need
Couldn't
to
do
be
it.
heavily medicated.
I couldn't do it.
in a restaurant.
Yeah, no
You
wonder
would
they're
need
all on
a lot of
drugs.
Xanax.
yeah. So there was, I thought, some interesting things too. When Steve introduced them and he talks about Amy being in the other room, he says they're a married couple for now. And they cut to Amy being like,
Yeah.
and then, back to your point of like, he acted like this. Is it because the restaurant was closed that now we're talking in past tense and we're trying not to let on?
I wonder
the
if
restaurant's
they're maybe
closed?
even separated at this point. They're not living together anymore.
Could be. Let's see. Amy talks about the dead people want to leave, but are feeling mostly stuck. And Steve goes, Christ, that feels like something out of a movie. To the,
The zombie sketch. Yeah.
Yep. And I don't know if you have anything before she gets to her recommendations.
No, my only thing is at the end after the recommendations are read.
Mm-hmm. So Amy recommends a medium, an attractive female with a firm approach, because the rocking chair man, who we're assuming is Tony, the musician, will respond will respond more favorably to that. So that's day one. While this is happening, Julio should be at an office of a Reiki master or a location of a Reiki master so that the Reiki master can cut the ties and cords that Julio has to the dead guy, which, again, we've seen this kind of thing before. So maybe there's just a piece of that's always following Julio around. So that's day one. Second day, they need to have a few psychics and mediums come to move everyone on that wants to move on. Which then, when I saw that they had a psychic and medium day, I was like, I wonder if that sparked any increased activity with people around there. So that was day two. So people want to move on, but they need a few hands there to do it. Day three, the Reiki master should come in and do protection over the whole area. And then Michelle goes, well, that's a lot to take in. And Julio says,
that's what you wanted from them.
That's just a lot to take in. Julio says, we'll definitely do what Amy says. Amy's face doesn't look like she believes him, but now they're snuggling and kissing. And Steve's like, oh, look at you two are looking at each other like you love each other again.
That's the first time I've seen you guys smile. Off. Yeah.
Yep. And then it pops up that they are still looking for a Reiki master and mediums.
Yeah. Well, Steve says to Michelle, are you going to do everything Amy says? And she's like, of course I am. And he goes, don't lie to me.
Yeah.
And then they say, still looking for Reiki master and medium. I'm like, that's why Steve didn't believe him. He knew they weren't going to do shit.
Yeah.
Well, and then it makes you wonder, like, did Steve know that they were closed? And, is there potential that this was coming back?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so I did find something on islandpacket.com that I can't open and read because I have to pay for it. But the snippet that I says, in terms of how we felt when we were in the restaurant, that part's gone. Julio and I are back to a good place, Michelle said. Julio is working at Oka Tea Ale House, and Michelle is a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway.
Oh. And she was a realtor previous to doing the restaurant.
Okay, good.
Illnesses will be permanent, but, quote, I feel like a different person. I feel human for the first time in years. And that's all I can read without paying for a subscription.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, all right. Should we did Megan just disappear? What?
She's gone.
Jeez.
I don't even have something that says that I could leave.
I wonder if I bet her computer died.
Yep. So I have another article that I'll send to you. It says, we never wanted to be on the show, but we were looking for some answers. We knew these folks were the only ones that could give us the type of closure we needed and to assure us we weren't losing our minds.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to read the Alanism
there she
just
is.
because. Oh,
Oh
she's
my
back.
God.
What happened?
happened?
We're like, what
What
happened?
happened?
Did you get mad and stomp on it?
No. Oh my God.
Maybe your computer died.
No. It's
Okay, good.
no, I went to open another window to try to find another article that I could read, and I clicked the box. So
Oopsie. Okay. Well, I just want
the audacity when I go, oh no.
Oh,
the same with us.
that's
So you can
funny.
hear the little pew, pew.
It is time for an Alanism.
It's time for an Alanism.
All right, I want to do a quick Alanism and then we can scoot off. But because this one I thought was funny. This was number 72, and this one goes with the fact that we recorded 2 episodes today, and we really have no idea when they're going to air.
Right.
Today's Alanism is, I don't know which one we did first, but we did the other one second.
Hey,
Words
that
of
is
wisdom,
100%
Alan.
accurate.
He's not
Yep.
wrong.
Yep. No. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for choosing that one, AP, and thanks for everybody for coming on and joining us again today. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Later.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Activity Continues podcast. We really appreciate you giving us your ears for a bit. Please reach out if you have a suggestion for which episode of the Dead Files we should cover next, or if you have a spooky story you'd like us to share on the show. We can be reached at theactivitycontinues@gmail.com or through our website or any of our socials. Links are all in the description of the show. Please feel free to drop us a note and say hi. And join us next time when the activity continues. The Activity Continues is produced by me, Amy, at Collected Sounds Media and is part of the independent Collected Sounds podcast network. We are also proud members of the Boo Pod network of super cool podcasts.
Nailed it.